Okay, the software is claiming we're live. I'm just waiting to see confirmation on YouTube itself. It's true, we're live. The system is not lying to us this week. Marvellous. So, hello to everyone who's watching. Welcome to the Marches ID update. We are already on our third show since we started this. That is mildly terrifying, I feel.
I know, you haven't gotten rid of me yet.
It's coming. Just wait. End of this
Okay.
episode. We'll, after public comments you have made about British literary heroes, I feel this could be the last show we ever do. But
I am not sorry. I am not sorry. And it was
I
even
know
better.
you're not.
So, for Tolkien Reading Day, I found it wildly appropriate that I ended up watching the Zack Snyder Justice League, which is basically, long, slow, and you take extra effort to remember what the plot was. I was like, this is a perfect movie to watch on Tolkien Reading Day.
And on that note, welcome again to the ID update. It's Mixology March for some extra interest. My name's Tom.
And I'm Joe.
Let's roll that intro. There's only one place for the breaking news in the world of instructional design. The ID Update with Tom and Joe. All the news you never knew you never needed. Only on IDT. One day it will be only on IDT. Sponsored by.
Great.
And because this is YouTube, it will be a VPN service, guaranteed.
Yeah.
Super. Yes. So, again, welcome. It's Mixology March. So usually we start the show off with beers, basically. And today is not entirely different because I know we've both got beer on the desk. But being Mixology March, we thought we'd go down the route of cocktails. Thank you to those on LinkedIn earlier today who voted on what I'll be having. You stuck me, as I'm going to refer to it, with a Moscow Mule. For those who...
There's nothing wrong with that. Moscow Mules are great.
There's nothing wrong with that, but, I was hoping for the Stormy IPA, which is totally following this up, either on the show or directly afterwards, depending on, how good the topics are, maybe. So we thought it would be cool, given the month, just to run through what we're having and how it's made. So for those who don't know, or perhaps want to try cocktails or drink along with us, do drop us a message what you're drinking during the show today. It doesn't have to be alcoholic. Could be a nice cup of tea or coffee if you're still working, which I'm totally not doing after this show.
No comment.
Absolutely. So, anyway, Moscow Mule, we start with crushed ice and this way, a full lime juiced into the glass. We then follow that with a large amount of vodka. 1 moment. A 1.
It's a long pour for 1.
A 2. And then we top that off with a really quite small amount of ginger beer.
See, it's still in there. You got it in there.
Absolutely. This glass was a little small for this, but you end up with a rather lovely two-tone drink like that, which you then give a little bit of a stir with your long and fancy bar spoon.
Nice. Look at that.
There you go.
I like it.
Joe, what are you going for?
Well, I'm going into the liquid lunchbox, which I actually I got this for a Christmas present, and it's been fantastic. So I am making something called a Manhattan IPA. Now, if you're familiar with Manhattans in general, it's basically 3 ingredients. You got yourself bourbon whiskey, which we're just rocking some Woodford Reserve, vermouth, and normally you would add bitters. That's normally what you do. However, in what's called a Manhattan IPA, you replace the bitters with a bitter IPA. In this case, I am bringing to you the holy grail of IPAs out in the States. This is Dogfish Head's 120-minute IPA clocking it at 18% alcohol. This little bottle was $11. Um, so yeah, it's gonna take me a little longer to mix, so I will walk you through it as Tom talks other things. But basically, it is 4 ounces of the whiskey, 2 ounces of vermouth. Shake that bad boy up, and then top it with 2 ounces of this, and that's a Manhattan IPA. Normally you garnish with a cherry, but that's just not a thing right now.
Absolutely.
I don't know why.
It's hey, garnishes are nice, but let's face it, they're not essential to the drink. They don't last very long, do they? That's
No, they don't.
cool.
So I guess I should. Well, like I said, Tommy, if we want to do stuff, I'm just gonna be over here just mixing,
Just shaking it up.
just shaking it up, and that's gonna be annoying on a stream. So don't mind me.
That's fine. We'll just talk over that. So big shout out to Olga in the audience there, joining us live this week. I know that was a thing we discussed on your comments. And a glass of wine and some cheese sounds lovely, quite frankly. This is probably the least gate-kept alcohol-themed start ever. Whatever you're drinking is fine. However you're drinking it, that's fine too. Because it's funny, once I sort of said to people, oh, we're doing a kind of mixology march, the first response is, oh, don't do that. Cocktails are such a kind of, oh, you have to drink it this way, or you have to use this kind of vodka or that kind of whiskey. And a little voice in my head just went, yeah, that's so not the route we're going down. So I use a system called the 12 bottle bar, which is basically you need all the base spirits, the cheapest possible versions of those spirits if you're using them for cocktails. If you're drinking something on its own, you like the taste of it, great. That's the right way to drink it for you, isn't it? That's that's to me is what it's about. It's a bit of fun. So whether it's a cup of tea, a glass of red wine, a cocktail, a beer, a glass of water, or just resentment at the way the world is, you can
I'm going to
enjoy
dork out
it with
about
us.
this. Speaking of alcohol, well, not speaking of alcohol, I'm going to dork out about this because I don't have my keys on me right now. I kind of forgot about them. So I've got this official game puck. This is from a game that we went to, but they're real cool and they turn it into bottle opener in the back, which ticked off so many collectors when we showed it. Someone was like, why would you do that to a game puck? I was like, it was a 6-3 game and this was goal 6. Nobody cares. This wants me to top it with 2 ounces. That's not going to happen. I'm just going to fill.
Why waste, right? And just to clarify for me and potentially other British audience viewers, that would be an ice hockey puck, yes?
Yes, that would be an ice hockey puck.
So it's
that's
it's
not
not
something. That's not a clarification I ever felt I had to make. I apologize.
if there's it's not like there are ice hockey. In fact, there is an ice hockey team here in Swindon. But the best description I can give of that sport here is that no one cares. Basically, it's
Fine.
It's there is probably a very small, very very passionate group of people who really really care, and now want to hurt me for saying this. But chances are none of them are watching this stream.
Well, we don't care about either versions of football anymore, so take that. Yours and ours.
Oh no. And as you can probably tell, I'm an inherently sport-loving person.
Totally. Anyway, I'm done here. So cheers, sir. Cheers to episode 3. Cheers to everyone.
To you. Very much. Thanks to everyone.
Yeah,
in the
Olga,
audience
this could
for
get
tuning
real
in as
spicy
well.
real fast.
Yeah. In fairness, we've got
Oh my god.
Good.
Yeah.
That is the sign of a very, very good drink, isn't it?
So yeah, to any of my coworkers who are watching, I will not be coming back.
This is going to become the strapline, isn't it? Come on the ID update, get absolutely wankered, and talk rubbish for an hour. So, moving swiftly on, we've got some interesting topics. I think last week we kind of went. It was almost like a proper news show last time round. It was a bit scary. I watched it back and kind of went, "Oh, we sound like we know what we're talking about." So to fix that this week, we've got some. We still have lots of interesting news stories, and a couple of things I'm sure we'll add in on the fly. But Joe, I know you've got our big topic of maybe more discussion than news, I guess, perhaps. But I feel like it's worth discussing because it's something that I don't know. It's talked
Mhm.
about a lot, and I think we have some pretty strong views on it.
Yeah. Um, so the way this is going to work, I'm going to kind of explain. This is what happened. Something got released a couple of weeks ago, and just as Tom said, it is a hot button issue. It shows up every time you see this concept, this word. Everybody goes nuts about it, and I wanted to take a moment and say, all right, here's what we've done. Here's a little context behind this, and then we'll go from there. So here's what happened. A couple weeks ago, I think March. Oh gosh, I've got it right here. March 16th. So 10 days ago, Consumer Technology Association releases what they called the Millennial Content Consumption Fact Sheet. And we're in a 4-second delay, and I can already feel eyes rolling. Don't worry, ours are as well. There's a lot of problems with this. The idea is to get a gauge, get a survey. They surveyed 4,000 millennials on just how do they consume content. What are the avenues that they do? How often do they do it? How often do they come back to it? Things like that. Where do they do this? So I'm going to run through the numbers, and then I'm going to pull a little bit back because one of the things I wanted to focus the discussion piece on is how much of this is fact and how much of this is fiction. It comes up very often when you get into these generational groups, of is there a way that we take them as a group and what we know about them and turn that into a full understanding of learning styles or a full understanding of how they absorb anything and everything. And there's so much of it that's crap. So I'll share that in a little bit. But in the meantime, here's what we've got for the content consumption sheet, and we'll make sure to post this in the comments. So how millennials interact with content, and for all intents and purposes, a millennial is, I want to say, 1987. Afterwards, as far as this survey was, it changes on who you talk to, but that's part of the problem and part of the point. So millennials, how do they interact with content? We'll go into how much do they do it. So 20% on a weekly basis, 20% spend more than 20 plus hours just consuming things, consuming some sort of content, we'll say through a screen and whatnot. 12% are 15 to 20, 16 are 10 to 15, 23 are 5 to 10 hours per week, 18% are at least 5 hours, and 8% are 0 to 5. So naturally, 10 plus hours a week covers a good half of your millennials. When are they doing this? According to this report, popular slots, late morning, late evening, 35% between 8 p.m. and midnight, 17% between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m., which that one's real interesting. And I don't mind accepting these as fact. There's nothing to gain per se through this outside of maybe when we should do the ID update.
Well, we're ignoring that.
You're not. You're at 8 p.m.
Oh, we have no UK viewers. UK people have no interest in speaking to people like me.
That's fair. That's fair.
Wow.
I'll own that.
That's
Here's some more interesting stuff. And again, some of this is actually really good information. Some of it's not. But I'm gonna part the Red Sea here. So more than a third of them are online all the time. 36% said that they are admit to going online almost constantly. I'm reading this directly. Saying they can basically be reached at any time throughout the day. Xers, which are this is already wrong. Generation Xers, which is ages 30 to 49, already wrong. Right behind them with 28% saying they're online constantly. Often are splitting between two screens. Mostly talking about brands over social media. Facebook and YouTube are still top slots. So, sorry, everybody else, the Facebook killer, it's not a thing. You don't have a Facebook killer. I've seen enough of that. Other stuff, let's see. Here's some fun ones. Turn to search engines to research business. This is actually kind of a new one, actually. And like I said, I'll split up fact and fiction, but this stuff we're still kind of delving into fact. Search engine, SEO, search engine optimization is a thing. Remember when social media just started? Everybody switched off Everybody switched off of their normal channels and it became word of mouth. Share me on Facebook, share me on Twitter. And you still see some of that, but it wasn't nearly as aggressive as it was when Facebook first started. That's starting to switch again. 25% turning to search sites, 20 to a vendor site, and then only 17 are looking at peers and colleagues for how they look at business. And whatnot. So that's kind of your how millennials consume content stuff. A lot of that's really interesting information. We've got some thoughts on how do we look at that from a learning and development standpoint. But like I said, there's some parting of the Red Sea. So let's get into the bullshit. Opportunities for companies. They also published an opportunities for companies. Where can they do better? And I think as learning developers, I've seen enough articles on how do we engage with millennials? How do we engage with baby boomers and stuff like that? It's just, there are words. So cultural relevance. So here are the top tips. Cultural relevance, having some sort of cultural relevance. I don't think that's a millennial thing. Okay, I'm just gonna list these. Okay, commentary can go forever. Cultural relevance, thought leadership and expertise. Savvy internet users, that one's a given. That one's fine. Focus on providing a personal experience that resonates with the target market. I'm actually okay with that out of the gate. As they grow older, millennials want expertise. This one's kind of an interesting. Looking beyond video, interactive tools, or cool social experiences, personal touch points are key. Business content must provide real insight and inspiration versus blatant product marketing. I actually like that one and agree with this pretty heavily as well. But anyway, so the reason I'm bringing all that stuff up is, like I said, there's a lot of fact, there's a lot of fiction here. I think that when you look at specific numbers of, when are they doing things and where are they connecting and are they always connected, there's a lot good that we can pull as learners from this. I like the idea of different, unique, interesting ways to deliver learning content. When you get into things like cultural relevance, thought leadership, and expertise, what you're starting to get into are things like learning styles and how do they absorb information. So for those of you who are watching this, when you see articles about this is how millennials process things, throw all of that away because it's not a thing. But before I jump into why that's not a thing for millennials specifically, Tom, out of the gate, I'll give you a chance to talk because I want a chance to drink.
Fair enough. Yeah, so you might be able to tell by now, 3 episodes in, I don't have much of a game face. When I hear utter crap, my face kind of gives away how I feel about it. And my biggest issue here is not that there is no benefit in asking people questions and getting data. I'm sure that we haven't really seen their raw data, which would be interesting, I think. But assuming that their data is all good and their collection process and their analysis is fairly accurate, which is not a given in all these surveys, it still doesn't necessarily mean the story they're making it tell. So, for instance, it's all about millennials, and yet we could pretty much apply any of those statements to any age group of people. As people get older, they want expertise. No, you're kidding. It's not millennial specific. It's everyone. People use Google to find information. Do they? My God, we must tell the older generation immediately. Oh no, wait, they know. They're doing it at pretty much the same level. My biggest dislike in all this is that it's all based on so many assumptions and very, very leading ideas that they're backing up with data, but they're not presenting. For instance, we had the slight reference to Generation X people. The names are another whole situation. Could they be any more frickin' patronising and off-putting to people? Good news, you've been put into the millennial group. This means you are... Does that sound familiar? That sounds to me a lot like, you are this kind of learner. You are this kind of personality type. You will be put in this box and treated thusly for your entire working life. Guess what? People don't like it. They don't respond well to it. And if you've ever sat in a room of people and done something like the Myers-Briggs type indicator, you will know how much people turn around then and throw it back in your face and say, but sometimes I'm not like that. And
Right.
I say this as a millennial who is fed up of being told that I am X, Y, and Z. Um,
Yeah.
am I online most of the day? Yes, because it's my job to be. If I wasn't, I wouldn't have any clients. It would be the same if I was 45 and doing my job or 18 and doing my job. And I think a lot of what gets put down to generational is actually about where society is at the time we're taking the picture. Guess what? You're right. When my dad was 20, he wasn't using the internet. Do you know why? It didn't exist. Ta-da! There's your generational shift. It's not about the individual generations, it's more often about the culture, the society, and the available technology. If Google was available, would he have used it? Heck yes, he'd have been stupid not to, same as we would be now.
Yep. So, to tack onto the Google thing, one of the cases that are often made is that millennials and those who grew up with technology have worse memories. That's something that's been thrown at me pretty often. To be fair, I've never really had a great memory. Like short-term details, it's not a thing for me. But it's a case that's normally made because there's a good argument for it, which is, well, you don't need to have memory if you have Google. It got rid of stuff like that, like needing to remember directions to go somewhere.
Yeah.
um you don't need to do that anymore, so you're not really kind of exercising that muscle. But to provide a little bit extra of a some history and where this came from is when we talk about millennials, Gen X, Gen Y, what we're referring to specifically is it's the Strauss-Howe generational theory, also known as the fourth turning. And I'm going to use the fourth turning because it sounds like a cult, and those are the in thing right now. That's a very millennial topic. um um so we're talking about the Strauss-Howe generational theory. We're talking about fourth turning. What the fourth turning was, in very, very blatant terms, is it said every 20 to 25 years, there is kind of a break, a cultural shift in three key areas: social, political, economical. Nowhere in this generational theory does it say anything about how our brains are just wired. Um, so that's why we come at you. I have no problem coming at you and saying, when you see about learning theory for millennials, that is not a thing. It is purely looking at what has changed in the world and how are people responding to that. I think you can comfortably say we've hit that point in the last 5, 6 years.
Yeah.
Um, Now, where you can make an argument, where usually what you're talking about when you're saying millennials do this is when you get into technology. I did not grow up with the internet. That was a thing when I was 10, but I didn't start learning with the internet. I started learning on the Apple IIe. It couldn't even process a color that wasn't green, let alone the internet. Um, from the younger kids, that basically means, hey, they grew up with technology, but that's not a wiring popping out of the oven there. That's literally an affinity for technology, which anybody can get an affinity for technology. I know people well older than me who are so much better at everything, at computers and internet and technology. That's all it's referring to. So when you see millennials do this better, they have maybe more of an affinity, but you can't simply say because you're a millennial, you're better at X kind of processing. That's not a thing. That was never a thing when the generational theory began. It was just, this is the way of the world.
And I
Um,
think it's so, just to jump in a sec, I think
yeah,
it's really
no, go ahead.
important.
I've been talking.
That's good. It's just because we're talking about affinities, I think it's important to make the difference between an affinity, like you can be born with a certain affinity to certain things, but there are a lot of things that can actually knock this off in this context. So, for instance, there is a massive problem of, oh, people born at the moment have an affinity will be better with technology. Well, only if they're in a socio-economic situation where they come into contact with it.
Mhm.
There is a huge problem here in the UK. I'm sure there are similar issues in the US and all around the world, where there are entire areas and groups of people with no or limited internet access, no affordable technology options available to them. People living born into poverty today will not have that affinity to technology because they will not experience it from a young age. But you're right, kids going to school, as I say, in the best schools at the moment, or well, certainly the schools with the most money, are getting iPads from day one in school. And yes, they will, of course, leave school with a much better understanding. But I do wonder if that the type of technology they're coming into contact with, is it useful in the workplace? We
Yeah.
discussed it before. The lack of knowledge of Windows is getting dangerous, in my opinion. I don't know where we're in 20 years. I don't. We're either going to have to move everything onto Android or Apple, or we're going to have a serious lack of system administrators for big businesses. So I think it's not it's not let's say like a natural affinity. It's more of a socially sort of absorbed affinity. If you don't come into contact with the tech, you're going to be left behind, which I think is the really dangerous part of this as well.
Yeah, and it's the piece that I can pull off from, as a learning, as an ID, as an instructional designer, as somebody who does training, as somebody who has courses, what can I actually pull from these kinds of content consumption fact sheets? What can I say about a millennial versus a baby boomer? Which is really just a matter of the affinity to the technology. I don't look at it as I need to tell the story differently, more than I need to make sure it's accessible to people who might not be experts at the content. If I'm doing something that is, on my own type of training, if I'm just creating content for fun, I can look at these kinds of stats and be like, hey, maybe I'm going to go to YouTube and I'm going to go to those kind of natural growth channels as opposed to invest in something that be a part of my inner circle of website and get access to resource, the life coach funnel. I look at these kinds of stats and I say that's probably not going to be as impactful and insightful. If I'm a part of a company, you bet I'm not going to be, hey, keep tabs on this intranet for learning if you want to learn what's new. This proves to me that a majority of the workforce do not care. That's the information that I can pull from this kind of stuff, that I need to be more out there when it comes to like the marketing and the communication with people, as well as own the fact that they might not watch during normal hours. Um, Make it so I'm not wasting their time. Like that's a personal preference. That's why I like micro learning so much. It's
Mm.
like I'm not wasting your time. It's 8 p.m. and you're using the bathroom and you got nothing else to do. Here's 5 minutes of information for you.
Yeah.
Um, and that's something that, to bring it full circle, that's kind of why I really wanted to bring this up and why I wanted to have this conversation. Is there is so much junk science around this is how your brain is wired. When I see something like this, honestly, look at the straight facts of the who's doing it, when and where, the how and why, throw it away. Everybody is different.
Yeah, I think this is a classic example for me of something where L&D, in my experience, be it instructional design, be it traditional delivery, whatever, it's nothing new, is always very keen to jump on a report or a paper or a technology and use it. And
Mhm.
sometimes we just need to say that's got nothing to do with us, or it's not founded in real science, or it's not ready to be used well yet, and we just need to leave it alone. And this is a prime example of the middle one. There are so many what ifs, maybes, and not at all relevant to what we're trying to do as an L&D function that we
Mhm.
really ought to just say whether you're 65 and a contact center agent or 18 and a contact center agent, you're doing the same job with the same tools in the same company. And guess what? You're both humans. In those 50 to 60 years between you, there has not been an evolutionary jump that has changed the way the human brain functions. I'm
No.
sorry, we may like to think there might be an evolutionary jump, but they take a fairly substantial period of time. And we only have to look around the world to see we are not an evolving species, let's be honest. Um,
No, and I'm not going to share what my proof is as an American. Um, so I like
you've
the
shared
comment.
quite enough. That's
Yeah, no, we're good. Yeah, 18%, 12. There we go. That's all I need. Olga's got interesting points of parents are actually concerned about their kids being
Mm.
too immersed in technology. Okay, so I had that problem. I grew up on the Atari, but that was my babysitter. The Atari 2600. I can rock anybody's world in Defender. Don't get me started. I'm real good. But we had that problem. Remember it's such a 90s term now that I think about it, but the vidiots. We ever called a
Oh,
vidiot,
yeah.
right?
You'll get
We were
square eyes looking at screens all the day.
Exactly. Don't sit too close or your
Oh.
eyes are gonna get stuck that way. All that stuff. Um, I do agree that there should be some sort of concern of maybe immersed in too much technology. I mean, I've seen enough like editorial cartoons of life happening and everyone's just looking on their screens through the camera. I get it. I think we're kind of growing past that. It's generationally, I think it's a new and shiny toy. The internet, we're still learning it, but now it's kind of become such a part of our day that like I'm not as like immersed. I mean, it's naturally a part of who I am, but I think I can get away from it maybe a little bit easier. It's actually funny. So I'm gonna add one more ounce of spice for us to roll our eyes at here. As a part of this fact sheet. Um, and here's another one that I see in these types of articles. So again, if you want to separate fact from fiction, everything I'm about to tell you is fully freaking fiction, but it shows up constantly, which is how do you segment from there? Are there subsections of millennials? The answer to this is yes. It's also, but you don't care. Don't care. It's fun. It's cute. Doesn't mean anything. So in this report, I was about to do six, but I haven't had that much alcohol. There are six.
It's about as accurate as the rest of the paper. Why not? That's...
All right, check this out. 29% classify as what we call the hip millennial. 22% millennial parents. That's going to be the Zoomer Those are going to be the ones who give birth to the Zoomers. That's the latest generation. 16% the anti-millennial, for whatever that's worth. 13% gadget guru, 10% clean and green, and 10% old school. These are other segments that they made for millennials. It doesn't mean anything, guys. If somebody says it's like, oh, this is the ENFJ millennial, shut up. It doesn't mean anything. I'm like, like stop, especially for learning and design. Where there is value is marketing. I've been in marketing for 10 years. This stuff is absolutely useful, but again, the only things we really pull from this as a marketer are kind of the who, where, and when. That's where I get the most out of. Sometimes I'll get into the why. Sometimes marketers will get into the why, and that's when you do get into the cultural cultural association. Where are we at in culture? That's just good storytelling. But on the same token, you can do just as well without doing that. You can do just as well. You can't come in and say it's the new Toast-O-Matic 3000 like you can pull off in the 50s. But there's a little bit of storytelling aspect to it. But at the end of the day, that's not ingrained. Not every millennial is going to respond to it. But yeah, I found the subsections kind of funny. And just to add into the BS of this, and I don't want to completely not content science review and treat them like garbage, but I have to laugh at an obvious problem. This fact sheet that I've been referring to was March 16th, 2021. The segments that they kind of built off of to help compile their data was called the Millennial Consumer Report from 2012. How much has happened in the last 9 years from technology that none of that applies? Don't even, because what's the biggest thing that's changed with millennials in the last couple of years? Well, us 36, 30, 33 to 39-year-olds said no, and we made the exennial generation on our own. Not represented. We did not want to be associated with the Tide Pod generation and the Cinnamon Challenge.
Yeah, all right, Grandpa. Some of us are still left here with the peasants that you've left in the millennial generation. That's I appreciate I look like I'm probably from the generation before that, but that's not really the point.
I just can't grow it, man. I want to.
I know, right? It's the danger is then it starts going grey, and your wife does lovely things like just point them out every now and then when you're sat on the sofa, which is nice.
So
say,
Olga brings up a fun one.
I was just about to say, Olga is bringing some awesome info to the chat. Some
back in my
researchers,
day, Luke.
Yeah. Yes. So some researchers say that 60% of kids today are going to work in jobs that don't exist today, and that's totally right, and has always been the case. When you
Mhm.
think about you look at older generations who aren't good with computers, by whom I'm talking about Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak. No, they weren't good with computers because they invented the frickin' things as we understand them today. There, you know, there will. There, I think probably the 60% is an ever-growing number, because of course society, not just technology, is to a point susceptible to Moore's law, where we will continue to see exponential acceleration in the development of our culture, our society, our technology, and those things will inevitably drive what jobs are required. And similarly, I think that will almost amplify the dodgy results or dodgy um, way we're looking at this data that's been collected about millennials. It's not so much about the generation, it's about what jobs there are. Guess what? There are more jobs in IT now than there were in 1950. Do you want to know why? It's a fairly common sense question, and it's got nothing to do with the people and when they were born. It's simply to do with what was needed when they hit the job market, and it'll be the same for these kids. So yeah, will e-learning be around in 10 years? Yes,
Yeah.
because whether it's good or effective or not, we will keep selling it to people. If nothing else, L&D, the industry, has proven that it can continue to sell terrible products to businesses by using simple buzzwords again and again and again. So I am perfectly comfortable. And yes, Olga's probably right. Scorn will probably still be the norm for some horrific reason. Um,
Yeah. I think what's interesting regarding that is if anything showed us that L&D is gonna stand the test of time, it's 2020. I
yeah,
think 2020 absolutely proved that L&D will never go away and grow because we had
sure.
this big shift in technology where you couldn't do stuff live. People needed to transition to a new medium, a new format, and the industry blew up from it. Um, and the next big thing, you know, how do you how in the world are you going to educate the 60% of jobs that don't exist? Hi, pay us more. Um, we're here. But into new mediums. If mobile ever catches on, um, it probably won't because VR is kind of like the third party that's just taking it all away. But hey, you know, if VR catches on, you're gonna need people to develop that. You can't AI that training experience. And then if we go into, you know, God forbid if Google Glass comes back. But hey, if we get into time cop esque goggleware, um, you know, that's a new medium, and you're gonna need us to deliver for that. So I don't think L&D is going anywhere.
I
Um,
slightly disagree there. I think that's exactly where I think once it gets to
all right.
a good operational point, I think AI will take that part over. I think development will cease to be a L&D responsibility. I think we'll design and
Okay, I'll give you that.
conceptualize, and then we'll say, build that. The same as in
That's
the
fair.
near future, we'll say, why would humans farm the land when we've got robots that can do that for us, that don't age and need hip replacements and all these other things?
You
Um,
know what? I think I'll give that to you. I do think that, you know, authoring tools are going to get so easy to the point where you can just be like, fill out some forms that is basically a you know, your thought process on a storyboard, and
yeah,
it'll take care of the rest. I do think that's going to happen. I
and I
don't
think
think that Captivate's ever going to do it. Um, sorry, I had to do it. I had to do it.
it's a good job I didn't have any drink in my mouth at the time, isn't it? Yes, I
I'm
think
working.
I think that's the only time that VR will become a truly functional option for L&D, because as it stands, it's just good VR is what I'm talking about here, as in top end bleeding edge VR that is not currently available anywhere on the market. Because I've yet to see a VR product that I would honestly say yes, that's good enough that I would give it to a business for training purposes. They've all got issues. Um, I think only with AI will it become cheap enough, quick enough, easily editable, and of a high enough quality that it will actually be a useful learning tool. That's only my opinion, and I know there are entire companies making a living on the fact that they disagree with me. Um, but what can you do?
Uh, I've learned to embrace my role as a disruptor. By the way, round 2, I really like these things. This IPA Manhattan is a really cool cocktail. You have to be careful. You have to add cocktail to the search, or else you're going to get like a chiropractic company in Manhattan.
Nice.
I learned that the hard way.
I think we're definitely on track for a second drink each this show, I think.
Wow.
So we need to
It's like
round
2
off this
shots of
topic
bourbon.
because we've been going for like 40 minutes on topic 1, really. But this has been
Yes,
really
I'm
great.
sorry.
No, sorry. Fairness, we've got some great stuff coming in as well. I think just to finish it off, I think Luke's mentioned audio platforms like Clubhouse Podcasts, Twitter Spaces, starting to come into e-learning.
What do you think of Clubhouse, man? I like it. I mean, I haven't really been a part of it, but I understand the concept that it's trying to do, but I also see it to be one of those fads that's going to last a year.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to stick around. I think it's going to be a bit of a flash in the pan. And to be honest, my issue again is, could it be a potentially great learning tool? Yes. Will it ever catch on in terms of mainstream L&D? No, because businesses have no control over it. And most businesses will never let in the door a platform they do not have some level of control over. And as much as it's not the done thing, they're right to do so. Why on earth would they risk security leaks, cybersecurity issues, and just no control over what their people are learning? Who's to? And this is to me, it's the biggest current weakness in the approach and the way we look at things like social learning, which 9 times out of 10 is nothing at all. Is that businesses? We go, oh, why aren't businesses buying into it? It's like, because in a workplace context, it's dangerous. There are very real risks. Businesses aren't being alarmist or slow to pick up. They'll ask you, how do I make sure one person doesn't accidentally misinform my 500 other employees and they all start doing their job wrong? And our
dude, you
answer
should work in
is
product training because that happens all the time. It's called a wiki.
That's This is it. You want to know why Wikipedia is not viewed as a reliable source? Just put it in. Just send a Wikipedia link to one person working in higher education and see how they respond to your point. So yeah, I
One
think
of the things I've been trying to do in my jobs is I'm trying to like brand our training team in such a way that if you see like our brand somewhere, you know that training has approved this content for the organization, for organizational consumption.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's necessary, especially when you have things like Wiki, like Confluence, and all of all this stuff where 60 people have a different way of doing their own thing. And I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to create like a funnel of like, hey, if you want to create content, that's fine, but some of it has to go through us just so we can at least like maybe tweak, adjust, edit a little bit, and then give it a stamp of approval. I really wish in 2021 that could be the thing. You know what? Hey, all right, hey, all you learning guys who do this, can we throw learning theory and new nonsense that comes through your head and new shaped ways people learn away for just a moment? And can we make a focus in 2021 branding your training team in such a way that you guys can actually be the experts on education in the company? I would kill for that. I would kill for that to be a norm in organizations. So that way we can come and say, we applied maybe not theory per se, but just some common sense from our experience of educating people. We can add simulations and whatnot. I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on stuff like that of how hard is it, not to say that we had such a good training idea, but to say that you guys are the actual kind of keepers of the knowledge, the bold italicized underlined knowledge in the organization. I would love for L&D to come back and say and just have that be a focus. Every job I go to, it's the problem. It is the problem. That's my mini rant on something sort of on topic. Also, sort of 3 shots of bourbon in.
Absolutely. No, I think that's well taken as well. So we do have some other topics for discussion today. I know we could go on not near enough endlessly on this,
Yeah.
and we might come back to it another day. Who knows? Well, I'm sure we will. These aren't solo topics, are they? But so yeah, we've got some. I guess we got some tech bits and bobs, haven't we?
Yeah,
Let
we got a
me.
bunch of tech
I've
updates and a bunch of resource updates.
absolutely. I tell you what. Shall we? Do you know what? I'm gonna throw a quick couple out there, just under the heading of it's such a good time to be working with video. Like just in this last month, so much cool stuff has happened. So big thing for me, the two tools that I like live in as a video editor are DaVinci Resolve and Premiere Pro, both of which have taken huge jumps forwards. So DaVinci Resolve got a
Really?
whole new version. DaVinci Resolve Studio 17 has come out. For those of you who don't do video editing or want to start video editing or video edit and don't like Premiere Pro because it sucks balls 90% of the time, um,
I tell
DaVinci
people don't use it.
exactly. DaVinci Resolve is the king of video editing softwares. End of discussion. There is no debate. No one can say anything else. I have spoken.
Okay.
Um,
All right.
I
All
say
right.
this purely because it is the only one of these tools that is used by actual, real, professional, film level video production companies. None of them are loading up Premiere Pro. None of them really are loading up whatever the Apple one is, because they're not stupid
Final
enough to
Cut.
be. There we go. They're not
Final Cut
stupid enough to get
Pro.
stuck in the Apple ecosystem. They
Man,
moved
I
from.
don't understand Premiere. I have to throw that out. I don't understand why Premiere is a thing. Because After Effects does literally everything Premiere does and then some.
You would I. You know, it's been a long time since I really tried to do a lot in After Effects, but I don't believe it color grades footage. Um,
No, you can color grade and color adjust in After
oh, okay.
Effects.
Oh, fair enough. There probably isn't then. Well, now maybe there
It's
is.
it's like TechSmith Audiate versus the voice to
Mm.
text tool in Camtasia. So
Oh, okay.
Camtasia's voice to text tool is garbage. If you pay $30 a month for Audiate, it's freaking stellar. And there's no reason they need to be split up except it forces you to spend more money.
Shock. It's almost like they're a company. Um, yeah,
Right? I
and
had to buy 2 other bottles of alcohol to make this happen.
look at that.
Thanks,
See,
world.
I know, right? Um,
And
so
an
yeah,
ice maker.
So yeah, DaVinci Resolve Studio. The other reason is it is the entire suite in one bit of software. Video capture, video editing, exporting, color correction, audio editing, not like some light touch editor, a full suite audio editor. Motion
Ooh.
graphics, again, not a light touch, it's all there. So you've got what they call it Fusion, Farlight, Cut Studio, and the Color Studio. So you have literally everything you could possibly need in one platform, and there is a completely free version of it. Completely free.
I have to look at this.
If
I don't know DaVinci Resolve. I'm such a Camtasia nut
this is
because of
it.
things like interact. Can it do like interactions? Can you do
No,
HTML5
nope.
exporting?
It
No.
is it is purely a video editing software.
Okay,
So it
that's
is
fine.
designed. Yeah, exactly. It's designed for what it is.
Yeah.
But really, real kind of well. Again, you can do real high end cuts with it. You can also do real quick, dirty edits with it. It's quite handy for that. It's made by Blackmagic, same guys who do the cameras.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no, I know. God, I know Blackmagic very well.
this is it. So
In my
especially if
in my
you're
film
in
review.
yeah, especially if you're in their camera ecosystem, it's perfect because it works really well with B-RAW, which is their raw
Okay.
footage file type, which again, Premiere Pro does not handle very well. It has a plugin, it claims full compatibility, it will crash 99% of the time you try and import the footage. Whereas DaVinci Resolve is just like, yeah, whatever, it's fine, I know that footage, it's my footage, it's home, as you were. Um,
So Olga's
so,
asking. I have.
yeah, go for
Well,
it.
no. Olga's asking. recommendations for interactive videos. I have to throw Camtasia into this mix. I have to say it. Now, I'm really interested in DaVinci Resolve for video editing because one of the things that I say about Camtasia is it's a great video composer. It is a garbage video editor. It is absolute trash. It doesn't do any of like the color correction stuff. It doesn't do motion graphics. Unless you're doing text, like you get a limited motion graphic thing, but there's not a lot you can do with it. I love Camtasia for interactive videos. You do get the opportunity to do things like hotspots and whatnot.
We're going to have to have words with Luke because
no. He added the laughy cryy face, which means I'm pretty sure that was acknowledgement of sarcasm.
I hope so.
So Olga, I highly recommend Camtasia for things like that. But if you need to do, let's say you're doing a webinar cut, let's say you're doing anything with any ounce of complication, that's not a glorified PowerPoint. I can't get over how easy Camtasia is to use. But I'm really interested. Like, man, I really got to look at DaVinci Resolve.
It's seriously
that's my
good.
biggest complaint with Camtasia.
So yeah, anyway, I said about the free version of DaVinci Resolve. If you want the fully featured top-end pro package, it's like 250 quid forever.
That's not
done. Single payment. No long-term subscription.
License?
Perpetual license, including at least one full update. So if you buy 17, they include an update when they launch 18 in that license.
So I assume that's one, kind of like Camtasia's maintenance, $50 maintenance update.
Yeah, except you pay no extra for that. You just get it. At the moment, you can eat, because they do a whole load of editing surfaces as well. So I use the speed editor, which is just a couple of keys, a nice dial, great. It's like £260. But if you buy that at the moment, they then give you a pro license for free. So you get the editing station that just plugs in by USB-C and the software. This isn't a plug. We don't get anything for you buying that stuff. But if you're looking for video editing software, guys, even if you download the free one, it is freaking awesome. Really is. So their update they've just brought out is improved their color correction engines. They've got all kind of automated LUTs pre-installed. They've made editing simpler, creating your own. They've improved they call it AI. Really, it's just machine learned and predicted sort of replacement and auto effects, things like that. Rotoscoping effects are now much more. Yeah, I know, but they're now much smoother than they used to be. Which is quite cool. On the Premiere Pro point of view, because I've got a lot of clients that insist on it being used, for example, they have moved their auto transcript and captioning service from beta into the production version. This is seriously cool. So it's now the one thing I'm going to use Premiere Pro for. I've done a few so far. I've had it's got some issues with commas, thinking there should be a full stop there when in fact it should be a comma. That will improve over time. Naturally, they're going to improve their language engine, but it is incredibly good.
Interesting.
So it transcribed 30 minutes of 4K footage with 5 people talking in about 6.5 minutes. I think, I then spent maybe 10 minutes proofreading and correcting some commas, which it even highlighted in red to tell you it wasn't sure if it had got it right.
Wow, that's impressive.
Tell me about it. And then from that, you can export it as a transcript. And you can also get it to auto-generate a whole different range of different captions. So whether you're working to 608 or 708 caption types, whether you want them burnt in versus optional, you can even export them as SRT files so you can import them into Storyline. So you never have to use the caption editor in Storyline again. You can just import a caption file ready-made.
I have a contract with the state of Colorado, and I fear like I'm gonna have to deal with that. I'm like, can I do it any other way? I have to laugh at Luke. Rotoscoping is evil. Here's a little anecdotal on me for a sec. So my degree is in graphic design. Before I did graphic design, I did multimedia and web. These were both mistakes, but in multimedia and web, I had a video design course. My teacher was an executive producer from Disney. It was real cool, but we had to do a rotoscoping assignment. We had to do a 5-second rotoscope, which sucks. So if you don't know what rotoscoping is, by the way, fam, it is frame by frame editing. Which in the world of web is 24 frames a second. In the world of not web, it's 29.97. Don't even talk about the 0.03. It matters, and I hate that it matters. I learned the hard way that it matters. But anyway. So yeah, it's frame by frame editing. I don't know if you've ever seen Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, but the last fight in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon,
Oh.
I rotoscoped them into using lightsabers. Even that sucked. It took like 20 hours to rotoscope a 5-minute sequence because you're just frame, find the thing and make it shiny. Oh, I hate. Oh, Luke. Oh, God, and don't even, dude. All right, so hey UK, hey Tom, PAL. When I learned about PAL, I was so mad. I was so mad about PAL because I saw our non-interlaced thing. So again, for context, back in the old days of CRTs, that's when your screen was curved and smelled weird if you broke it. You had something called I don't remember what NTSC stood for, but basically what it was is it processed every other line. So with this interlaced thing. And so it did a row of that, or did a screen full of that, and then a screen full of the other lines. As far as how it processed images. And it was, I don't know why, it was stupid. And then I learned about PAL, which is basically HD for 90s kids.
Yep.
And it was amazing. And I saw my first PAL like video back when we could process HD. So we saw like a comparison in our video course of NTSC versus PAL. I was like, why? I was so mad. I'm so jealous sometimes.
And thing is, the history behind this is what happens when you have a state-sponsored broadcaster. Your government is effectively paying someone to think about cheap and effective ways of piping out decent quality telly to every part of the country, and that surprisingly drives innovation. Whereas if you leave it to private enterprise, they will do it the cheapest way for as long as is humanly possible.
Oh man, did you see the stories of Texas during their blizzard? Speaking of private companies coming up with their own stuff.
Well,
so all right, 30 second make you sad story here. Texas in the bottom of our country, we've got a federalized energy grid, so everybody talks to each other except for Texas. Texas is like, we bring in our own oil, we refine our own. We got this ourselves. We're good.
How could this possibly go wrong?
It goes wrong when the temperature drops below 10 degrees and it snows like 8 to 12 inches in Texas, which you don't expect in Texas, closer to the equator. 110 degree weather is normal in the summer. They dropped like safety standards for cold weather because they weren't expecting any of it. And sure enough, privatized business making their own decisions got them to a point where when the blizzard hit, their pipes froze, gas wasn't delivered, and people are now dealing with tens of thousands of dollars of monthly bills just for keeping their home lights on. It's impressive.
It's
how
almost
bad it
as
is.
if these companies don't have people's best interests at heart, and that you need some kind of regulatory body to say, yes, you need to make money, but perhaps let's not ruin people's lives.
Yeah, so to bring this full circle, you should have a body like a learning and training development team branding and saying, we should be the owners of the resource that we are experts in. I figured I'd not keep it just a bunch of tangents.
There we go. Look, we brought it back to L&D right at the end of that section.
We made it happen.
And it was also just long enough for me to make myself a nice stormy IPA.
How gorgeous is that?
I know, right?
What? All right, tell us the story of the Stormy IPA. What is in it?
You have got 1 can of very bog standard Brewdog Hazy Jane IPA.
Love the brew dogs.
You have got some very cheap ginger beer. There's a theme to my
Okay.
cocktails that they are low cost. Um, and then you have quite a lot of rum shoved on the top, like floated off a spoon.
Is it like pour for 2 seconds, 1, 2, like what you did earlier?
I just kind of keep pouring till it looks like it's about right in the glass. Um,
Yeah.
which means it's always
Yeah.
slightly different, but it's one of those nice drinks that evolves as you go. So you start off and it's like rum, and then it's rum and ginger, and then it's kind of ginger and IPA, and then it's very IPA at the bottom. It's very nice.
Nice.
Um,
All right.
cool. So yeah, we've
Well,
got
I'm
some
going to jump
more.
in some tech updates.
Yes, absolutely.
So it's not just us talking about alcohol because the show has a purpose, and I don't want to get to that point.
Absolutely.
So, Captivate and Camtasia have both been silent. I am still. So if you caught the last episode, I'm convinced Captivate is working on something spicy. I am struggling to get a hold of it. So as part of the actual news, there's a beta apparently floating around with companies internally. Captivate, I feel like, is about to revitalize the living daylights out of themselves. I'm still trying to. It's not that I can't find the info; it's that I can't find it from an official source, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy. So all I can do is do the rumor mill. So I'm gonna go MSNBC, and I'm gonna stay away from WAPO written for now, where we actually confirm it. Sorry, a little political. So I'm staying from that. So Camtasia has not had any movements either. They had their big update last month. If you haven't done it yet, please uninstall and reinstall Camtasia. They did a lot of accessibility. Their video launcher, or launcher, their player. That's what I was looking for. Their video player is substantially better. Here's the new news. Articulate Storyline has followed suit. And their player is now more accessible. They have gotten themselves what is it? WCAG accessibility compliant.
Yes.
With their content. All this really means is that players are brighter, the icons make more sense, things like that. Additionally, for Storyline, they finally got rid of Flash stuff, guys. Like you can't export in Flash anymore. Why was this a thing? So yeah, they finally got rid of that. They finally got rid of all that stuff. So that is out. They are also planning something big in August. I don't know what it is, but you bet I'm going to research it. They recently, and I'm talking last week, sent out something to all Storyline users that said you are going to get forced into an update on August 21st, I think.
Yep.
I want to say it's August 21st, mid-August. You're going to get forced into an update for something. I don't know what. I'm going to try to figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, they did this last year, and it came in line with that massive upgrade, and they did last year. But it also coincided with them discovering a security bug in the desktop app, which is why they.
My thunder.
I know, right?
The December 15th update burned my thunder.
I know, right? Sorry.
Actually, I actually apologize. Speaking of security updates and speaking of new updates breaking the world, Mac OS 11. So hey, you Mac users out there, you might want to uninstall and reinstall everything Adobe if you have gone to Big Sur. So Mac OS 11 is Big Sur. Captivate broke. Most of Adobe broke. Photoshop had the biggest break. Captivate has released an official build to fix these issues. So yeah, if you are on Big Sur, uninstall, reinstall everything, and you should be just fine if you're experiencing any sort of issues.
It's not been a good year for Apple users, has it?
No, because it's Apple, and
they
that's
don't care.
Like COVID hit, like I gotta spend how much on a screen that's no different than the last screen?
pretty much. So, as you can tell, we're hardcore Apple fans here on the ID Update.
Still in a shelf in the desk.
No, it's. I must admit, I seem to be one of the few who was ended up with one of these new M1 Macs, and I just can't stand it.
Don't
Three
you have it
months.
hanging on your wall?
Yep, it's on a wall bracket. It's technically plugged in. I just wasn't giving it desk space. It hasn't earned desk space. Once it can run Windows and is upgradable, and generally just isn't an Apple product, it can have some desk space. But
Don't you want to upgrade it to Ubuntu? Is Ubuntu still a thing?
oh mate, if you
Remember that OS?
let's talk Linux. Let's talk Linux. No, let's not, because we'll be here for 6.5 hours. But yes,
I know,
Ubuntu is one of it's still probably the biggest, in fact, Linux distro being used. It's what most Ubuntu server is the most common server OS out there. Chances are,
Really?
if you buy Linux hosting from GoDaddy or HostGator or Bluehost or any of the big ones, it's Ubuntu server they're running on their servers. It's flat, it's reliable, you can host pretty much anything on it. It never
I didn't know
really
that.
goes wrong.
Huh? I did not. I actually didn't know that. My only experience with Ubuntu was having to like upload it to somebody's machine when it broke. They just needed a new
Yeah.
OS, like the system INI files broke, and it was a pain in the ass. But this was like in the early 2000s.
It's
I'm
come a
interested
long
in-
way, yeah. And that obviously the server and the desktop versions are quite different. Same underlying code, but obviously just the server version has no GUI. It's just text. It's just all what do you call it? It's not
I
command
don't know.
line, terminal. It's
Oh.
all terminal.
Gotcha.
What strikes me as odd is that obviously Apple run on the same base Unix code and talk about going two different directions. Totally free, open source, and secure versus it's an Apple product. Suck it up and give us your money. It's
All right.
so anyway. Let's
Should we
move
talk
on
some
from that.
resources? Let's talk
Yeah,
some resources.
let's talk.
Unless
some
you got more tech
resources.
updates. I don't have much more tech updates other than Adobe broke itself and doesn't do anything. Camtasia's done for a couple months, and Storyline finally caught up with 2021.
Computer hardware has not moved forwards and won't do for 2 years. There's your update. Moving on. Resources then. So, I'll jump in here actually, because it's one that I really, really love. If you don't already watch or listen to it, The Learning Hack. It's a podcast, it's a YouTube channel. Guy does phenomenal interviews, real deep dives with. I don't like everyone he has on his show. He's had a couple of self-professed experts and thought leaders, and generally the moment someone says, I'm an expert in the field of insert here, or I consider myself a thought leader in, that's when I stop listening. But
It's when you drink.
yeah, I know, right? But he has had some very, very interesting, very, very experienced people who are not just experts and thought leaders, but are on the ground doing stuff. And they come on to talk about their experiences of implementing theories and practices and building up a body of practice.
The true thought leaders.
Exactly. The people who don't consider themselves experts, because I should explain, the reason I dislike that so much is expert is such a grandiose and final title to give yourself. It indicates that somehow you know more or better than anyone else. And everyone who does it has such a, this is the absolute, my words are the truth, is how they always put things across. Their debates are usually, their approach to debate is to just shut people down.
Yeah. Oh God.
Or they say, well, you don't know enough about this to have the conversation. Now,
as opposed to answering a very simple question, like if you're so good, the counter should be easy to beat, right?
Explain it to me. If I don't know enough and you're the expert, help me, especially in the world of learning and development. You know, if the expert can't explain it, they probably don't understand it very well. That's the honest truth, isn't it? But yes, really, really great resource. Doesn't publish like weekly or anything. There's usually quite a long gap. It might be once a month. It might even not be that regularly, but pretty much every episode is a real home run of great information, great insight. So I would very much recommend it. Also, hilariously funny. He has like a sarcasm baby that shows up um, when people have little back and forths and things like that. It's really,
I feel
really
like this is
excellent.
how these are supposed to look.
Ooh, very nice.
It's number 3. I like it. I've seen the Learning Hack. I've
Mm,
seen like I haven't not a ton, not as much as I should, but I have seen them. Um, I sadly don't have any cool podcasts more
that's cool.
than as far as resources are concerned. Just a quick mention of what has changed with ATD if you're a member, which is both like neat and you guys suck. Um
Thanks.
which I think is like if the longer you've been in this industry, I think that's just the quintessential way to talk about ATD memberships is like
Okay.
neat, but you suck. Um an ATD member, they have changed their benefits for members. So originally one of the challenges they had, oh man, everything just froze on me in front of here. Okay, there we go.
That's fine. You're good.
Um
Keep going.
cool. So ATD changed their membership. Originally the membership was they had books, they had micro learnings, they had a bunch of resources that you had access to. However, if you were a member, you only get access to like 2 books, 4 research articles, 2 videos or 2 webinars per year. It
Okay.
didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
They have updated that as of March to give everyone access to everything.
Yeah.
If you go pro level, which is $429 a year, so they upped the cost to give everyone access to everything. I'm gonna go
But
with neat. It's a neat idea, but I also have to say, you guys have been here for 10 years. You guys have been here for hell longer than 10 years. Why wasn't this the default? Like you basically just admitted to you guys have nickeled and dimed for a decade. I'm pretty sure this is let me take a step. Here's the theory. Here's the spicy theory for you, Tom. I want to see how you respond to it. Okay?
go on.
Okay. Um I I I like being a member of ATD as somebody who is early into his career, past the point of winging it. So I was winging my life for the first 6, 7 years in this career, and then I kind of got good at it. And ATD was a good way to kind of validate and feel more comfortable with my presence, my existence in the industry. There was value there. It was good. It was good. It's a great networking tool. Now that I'm a little bit past that, as I enter years 10 and 11, I kind of look at it and say, it's neat but not required. So it has met its requirement for me as a career professional. And I feel like these institutions see that as a regular thing. For people where you kind of go into it as a validation.
Yeah.
And then once you feel a little more validated, you get into your own swing, you kind of go. Now with COVID in 2020, these types of memberships are luxuries, incredible luxuries. So I'm thinking this ADT thing isn't as much of a response to customer feedback as they say it is, more than
Yeah.
it is to we need to validate just how valuable we are when we know your training budget is thin.
Yeah.
So we're gonna give you access to everything and say what an amazing resource it would be for $400 a year for $429 a year.
Mm.
So I see through their marketing bullshit. However, for those of you who are, still kind of learning and still wanting to get into your own and still find a lot of value in those thought leaders and those studies and whatnot, I think the value is great, but also kind of screw you guys for taking this long to get to such a basic step. I'm gonna leave
Yeah.
that to you.
It's kind of difficult because ATD isn't really a thing in the UK.
Really?
Yeah, this was interesting because a lot of the modern ID world is driven from the States. as we're all very aware. So when I
Yeah.
first came into when I first came into L&D here in the UK, it was CIPD, the Chartered Institute of
Yeah.
Personnel Development,
I've heard
which
that.
is,
I've heard that
a-
acronym.
yeah, and to be honest, it's actually more of a group of HR people. That's like 90%, and then they kind of absorbed, oh, and learning people too. And to this day, I confirmed only last week, yes, when you take their Foundations in Learning Design course, you still talk about learning styles as if they were a fact. Um, so that
They're not,
kind
guys.
yeah, that kind of sets your expectation as to what I tend to think of these bodies. I think they are, on the whole, trying to do a good thing, but missing the mark massively. I think they are 5 to 10 years behind the actual industry. They're focusing on the wrong skills at the wrong time half the time. And again, I can only speak for the UK ones.
Sure.
Um, and I think quite often they don't practice what they in turn preach. They talk about, well, for one thing, they talk about inclusiveness and diversity, and yet all of them seem to be headed by white middle class people here in the UK. But setting that aside, which would it's not really an issue, I suppose. I guess I'm sure they're the best, most talented people for the roles that they're in.
As two white
Um,
guys. Yeah, no, there's no problem with this.
Yeah. In fairness,
I'm
the
kidding. It's
CIPD
a problem.
especially is very so there's a lot of female leadership, which is good. It's a good thing.
Cool.
I just don't think it's as diverse as it could be. But setting all of that aside, the content they put out is just dreadful. It looks like it was made in 1990s PowerPoint or something. You've got
Oh,
text
geez.
spinning onto screen and bouncing on. And it's like, oh my, are you serious?
Animated backgrounds. Tell me there's animated backgrounds.
Oh, of course there are animated backgrounds. Proper, but not like modern ones. We're talking like, when Windows XP introduced live backgrounds to the desktop.
Yeah.
We're talking about that kind of stuff. Seriously impressive things going on.
I
And
didn't
supposed, yeah,
I didn't acknowledge how
these,
much that fucking CPU space. Oh god, I'm so sorry. I
oh,
didn't mean to curse like that. I've never acknowledged how much CPU space live backgrounds did until
yep,
I had my phone
kills it, right? Um,
dead.
but yeah, no. So I'm not a fan of those bodies as a whole. When a good one comes along, great. I would love to see a globally unifying body that says this is what great learning and development work looks like.
So
But
what
no
would you
one is
do?
doing that.
What would you change? Because right now, all right, so my current problem with things like ATD and all these bodies is everything is around learning theory. We've talked about it in other kind of broadcasts that we've done of the published for sake of being published, how it floods and overwhelms. What would you add? What would you change? What would get you interested in one of these organizations?
So to start with, I would want to see it actually be genuinely global, not not just, oh, it's America or it's Europe. It would need to be global, because then everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet. For a start, that would be useful as an industry because there are no standards. You talk
No.
about standard L&D practice, it's a joke, it doesn't exist. Um, some parts of the world are miles ahead, some parts are behind, some are kind of don't know which way is up. And that's normal to an extent, but if they're going to have bodies, that's their job, is to put everyone on the same page. And then I want to see things like electable boards running them. I don't want to see it being run by an executive. I want to see a board elected by the membership who are real people doing the job. People who have actually sat in a room with an SME and gone, "Oh my god, you're an idiot. What are you talking about?" People who have actually sat there at 3 a.m.
Sure.
tearing their hair out because Storyline won't export a SCORM package properly. Those are the people with the insight to actually help move the industry forwards, not the people who published a paper 30 years ago and have been riding that wave ever since.
So you're really
Um,
that by designers for designers. I'm not going to say experts because that's a crap word, but by designers for designers, by the front line for the front line.
in a word, I basically want instructional design socialism on a global scale. And so I
Perfect.
lose the American audience for it.
No, yeah, we don't understand that at all. I'm gonna
Socialized
stop
instructional
there.
design. That can be a new model. Oh, I could launch it in a triangle sort of model. It's
Yeah, no, put it in a shape. Put
then
it in a
everyone will
shape.
buy into it.
Fine. Just don't make it red or blue. Don't do that any longer.
Yeah,
I can
this
feel
is
that.
it.
I would want to add on to it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of like actually helping people grow in ways that aren't thought. I'm tired of thought. I'm tired of thought articles. I'm tired of thought process. I'm tired of thought freaking theory. If you are here in this industry, you don't there's no global thing for you.
Mm.
I work at a tech company. I also work for the state of Colorado. I've got a contract for them. It's unreal the differences I have to think about. They're both product application training. On one end, I have people who are experts in their field and have probably done something like this before. And I have to treat them so differently than other people also using an application who really just needed a job. So they signed on with the government because the government was hiring. I don't want to come out and say that it's stupid to say that they're dumber. It's simply you simply have to acknowledge they have very different backgrounds.
Yeah,
There's no universal theory that applies to both outside of respect your audience. That's it. I don't want to see 20, 30 articles of theory on here's what to do with this generalized group of people in the millennial content consumption fact sheet. I don't care about your demographics. I don't care about your psychograph. Well, actually, that's not true. I care about your psychographics. I want psychographic articles. I can do something with that.
mm.
You don't see enough of that because it's hard to get.
Yeah,
It's hard to get those values. It's hard to get that kind of data because then you actually have to ask people as opposed to have them just fill out their form and put their birth date in and make 30 different assumptions based on their birth date.
yeah.
Um,
This is it. You
if
actually have to do some kind of investigatory work. Let's be honest.
yeah,
It's
so
just not what these things
there we
do.
go. So for you article writers out there, for those of you who are publishing publishing content, you give me content on psychographics, you get out of this demographic nonsense that means nothing and I can prove it. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. We'll talk some marketing shop. I'll rock your world. Um, get into psychographics. Why we do the things we do. Why does somebody come into learning? Why does somebody take this specific kind of position or use this kind of medium and what are their concerns? You're going to have something valuable. Outside of that, you're a waste of my time. I'll do it on my own.
Pretty much. That's
Cross
yeah.
fingers.
So now we've alienated most technology companies, all the leading bodies in the learning and development industry,
Disruption.
anyone else. That's and I should actually, so I will give a quick shout out on that basis to the ELN here in the UK, who is among the smaller bodies, but they are pretty much almost what I have described. They elect board members each year, they run events, not so much
Cool.
over the past year. They're relatively practice focused. They've unfortunately, I think, over the last few years, fallen foul of being a little bit too thought leadery ish. But this year they've run a lot of obviously distanced events and just interactive webinars, and they've got some real good people involved. People who have come on and said, I'm going to be on here for 2 hours and I'm going to show you how to build something in insert tool here. That's so
Cool.
cool. And
Yeah.
it's funny, just the other day I was thinking about should I Twitch stream like building stuff? Just sit on Twitch with Storyline for a couple of hours and build different menu types and whatever. And then I just thought, oh, do you know what? No one's going to watch. That'll be really boring.
One of these days I'm going to do it with my sizzle reels. One of these days I'm going to live stream a Camtasia sizzle reel creation. It's probably going to get no viewers, or I'm going to see the view numbers, but I'm going to
Yeah.
I'm not going to want to look at how long they lasted, but if anything, I'm gonna do it anyway.
This is it. The first time you run into, oh, we're just going to now take 45 minutes to color grade this. That'd be a big drop off in viewership.
What's gonna happen when shopping for music? That's where it's gonna be. Like even when I did for Training is Blank, I did a sizzle reel guide on things to think about, and I spent
Yeah.
like 15 minutes on music selection because I was like, it's so much fun. I hate how good stock music is when you're
It's
thinking
really
about how to
annoying,
apply
isn't
it.
it? Right?
I
That's.
know, and what's worse is it's designed to be on a loop. So you're like,
Mm.
oh man, that was so cool, and now we're and the loop is back, and then you go and you go and you go.
This is it. Because it's very like, I like having music on in the background when I work. And I no longer listen to actual music. I've just got about 300 stock tracks that I have downloaded that
I love it.
technically I should be using for work purposes, but instead they're just the working playlist.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
no, it's good stuff.
All
Um,
right,
so we've
we're
talked
coming up on
about
90
loads.
minutes here.
We
You
are.
got any
We've
you got any cool jobs?
Do you know what? I spent a long time looking for jobs this month. My job tip for this month, if you will, is if you've ever thought about going freelance or contracting full time, for the love of God, do it now.
Oh,
There
dude.
is so much money out there right now. I have had, I think this week, 6 or possibly 7 calls from agencies saying, we need you to come and do 6 months at 300 or £400 a day. Now is the time, people. If you've ever thought, oh, maybe, but I don't know if there's work available, trust
Oh,
me,
I've been
there is
headhunted
work
4
available.
times. 4 times, and I'm so tempted, but I really like where I'm at right now with Braze.
And yeah,
Um,
I think there is always that argument of, if you actually love what you do not be tempted away by the money, because as someone who is, runs a small business, freelances, it is not always good fun. I'm in the very fortunate position where I can be quite picky about my clients. I can turn down projects without worrying about the money. You will not be in that position unless you're very lucky at first, which means you will have to take a job that you hate, and you will hate it. Because it will be the client that says, you will reproduce these 600 slides as a 45-minute storyline piece. And that's what you're being paid to do. That's the contract, and you'll just have to suck it up.
yeah.
So only go into contracting if you are prepared to an extent, swallow your pride and do some bad work, until you
Yeah.
build up those good clients. But if you are willing to do that and you want to make the jump because you want the work life balance that comes with it, the freedom that comes with it, then now is seriously the time. There is so much work; it is unbelievable.
So if anybody from Braze is watching, I definitely love you, but I also have to appreciate what a contract salary can sometimes look like depending on the company that comes at you. Oh, but no, I'm actually in a really good group with them. But man, yeah,
Yeah.
I've been headhunted 4 times. I actually, God, this morning while I was picking up Vermouth, I had somebody from LinkedIn cons like, oh, we got a 12-month contract in Chicago. Like, no, but I can appreciate that. Freelance is good right now. Freelance money is great.
One quick
Mine,
point before someone ruins their life: the fact that it's good now does not mean it will be good in 6 months.
yeah, no, yeah, a good call out.
Consider that carefully. Um,
So good call out. All right, so mine is going to be a dose of humble pie. That's what mine is. That's what my job is. Job description. The job that I have for is. So when I was unemployed, I had a long interview process with a company called Givelify. I was going to be their the training manager. Um, the reason I'm eating this humble pie is because this was about day 75 of 95 to me being unemployed. I went through 5 interviews with like the head of the head, just SVPs, VPs of this organization. I spent half a day. I burned a lot of their payroll dollars. I thought I had this job. I thought I had it. and I didn't, and it sucked. It was devastating for me when I did not get that position.
Mm.
However, the response that I had was reaching out to the community, which was incredible and saved me. But I also completely rebranded. Training is blank happened as a result of me not getting this. My resume was updated as a result of me not getting this, and I don't necessarily look down on them and say you guys were terrible for not for letting me go or anything like that. Um, but it was such a churning point in my career and how I looked at myself as a professional. I have to appreciate that. So right now, Givelify, Givelifi, they're an application for philanthropy. Cool mission. Great mission. They're searching for a couple of content trainers right now. And I'm sure the person who is hiring those content trainers is the person who I was trying to become when I worked for them. Sure. But their mission is sound. The people are absolutely incredible. And one of the things that makes this really fun is when I interviewed with them, I had to go through homework. I had to do a project proposal and whatnot. And usually that kind of stuff, there's red flags associated with it. Like, am I giving you free work? And they acknowledged that proactively and said, hey, we're asking a lot of you as part of the interview process. So just for doing it, we are going to donate $100 to your charity of your choice.
Wow.
Yeah, right. So I did Girls Who Code is my charity of choice. It will always be my charity of choice. Because I think they're fantastic. But yeah, so Givelify is looking for content trainer or for trainers, product trainers right now. As of March 26th, 2021, if you watch this late. They're probably going to be looking for more. They are a very growing company. They had no training team when I originally applied for them. Please give them a look. They're a wonderful group of people. Their mission is fantastic. And if you do go further down the chain, they'll make it up to you for doing those kinds of projects. I have to appreciate that. I absolutely have to appreciate that. It's a good company based out
They,
of Texas.
yeah, they sound awesome. Like that's
Yeah.
just that one thing says so much about what they do as a business kind of gives you a good clue about how they're going to be. But the fact that they not only acknowledge the fact they were asking a lot, because you're right, those interviews, usually the moment someone says, can you just, I run the other way. I'm not gonna lie, I don't do
Yeah.
them because it's not worth the time, if I'm honest. 9 times out of 10.
No,
But
you're right.
to do that says so much about their business and about their intent and the fact that not only do they value you, but they value the type of person you are. That they're going to offer you some recompense, but that recompense is not going to you.
Yeah.
That I think that's almost like that old kind of cultural spot check before going to an interview, isn't it? Is
Right. Yeah, a little bit. A little bit.
I like
And
it.
that was
It sets the
actually
scene.
I put a lot of investment when I was interviewing at your culture because they tell you very much ahead of time. They tell you I should say for me. I don't know how
Yeah.
things have changed in a year. They told me like the further you go in this interview, there will be a point where we ask you for things that will take more time than we should ask as part of an interview process. But to pay for that, we are willing to donate because this is important to us, but we also want to make it worth your while. And I'm
Wonderful.
so sad that I didn't get that position, and I've got my own weird conspiracy theories. I remember seeing the email. I did an interview with Kara North on her
Mm,
Hired series called 95 Days of Unemployment. I talked specifically about that, and I showed the literal email that said we are considering other people. And I remember standing in my living room and I dropped my phone when I saw I didn't even need to read the email, right? Important update about your application. End.
yeah.
Don't need to see anymore. And I just dropped it. I couldn't handle anymore.
Yeah.
But that failure led me to success. I turned it around. I do want that company to succeed. I would love to see one of you rock their world with some kick-ass content. They could use it. I know they're just getting started. they've earned their respect from me.
Well, they sound freaking awesome. That's a wonderful note to end on today. Guys, it's been a really long episode, but I don't know about you guys, I've really enjoyed it. And I don't think that's just the cocktail speaking.
Yeah.
I don't think anyway.
I hope not. I'll review it when I'm sober
I
or
know, right?
sober. I'm not drunk. I'm feeling good, but I'm not drunk.
But no, it's always great fun to do these shows. I look forward to it every month now. As I say, 3 months has flown past, and that's largely because you guys in the audience are great. You get involved, you bring key information, we learn stuff. That's always helpful. So please do tune in again next month. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
And from me as well.
And in which case, until next month, we shall once again cheers and roll that outro. There's only one place for the breaking news in the world of instructional design. The ID Update with Tom and Joe. All the news you never knew you never needed. Only on IDT.